I was noticing the last couple of weeks that I'm seeing two different sides coming out of the European Union. One side, the politicians, we don't need the United States. We have Canada coming in. We got Ukraine coming in. We got all these stuff. And then I've noticed the German general pretty much take a dump when he heard the news. And he goes, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? And then recently I saw a video on YouTube that explained how the United States works in NATO. Sketch the other day said how much combined arms training the US military does, combined communication system and everything else. And this person said, the French have a different communication system, different millimeter of weapons. They don't match anybody else. So do the Germans. So do Poland, so does everything else. So without US coordination, you get the same type of situation that happened with the United States when they went in to try to rescue the hostages in Iran. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, is this good or bad for NATO? First of all, there is something in there, and Jeffrey, correct me if I'm wrong, about the US just can't pull out of NATO under presidential orders. It requires some sort of vote. That's what I'm hearing. I'm not sure. I don't care that much about NATO, honestly. But I do realize that that might keep us in NATO. But then again, some NATO countries would have vetoed this, like Spain calling it illegal and denying us airspace and naval bases. So I would not put it past that in the future NATO has a problem and the United States tell them, your problem, not mine. It's not in my hemisphere.
My
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I thought you were finished. Okay. My assumption is, looking at everything, is that the United States is not going to leave NATO, but by all of this talk, they're just going to make NATO become more the balance is going to be adjusted. This is all just ways to get NATO members to spend more of their military, to act more responsible, to not keep leeching on United States military power, to be more contributors to this relationship rather than leeching on America, and all of this tough talk, and all of this, threats of maybe leaving NATO is just a way. It's basically the art of the deal, basically, to get them to behave more responsibly as members of NATO. That's my understanding of what's happening, but I might be wrong.
I agree. No, I agree with you there. The only thing that I'm seeing is, let's see, Stammer in the UK has the lowest of all the politicians as far as approval rating, followed by Macron, followed by the German chancellor. All three staunch, and let's not talk about what's happening with Sanchez in Spain, because it recently turned out that some guy leaked out, hey, the judges in Spain decide, not the prosecutors, if they have a case or not. And there's a rumor that Maduro talked about Sanchez, and they're using that information to go after Sanchez and pretty much his entire family in Spain. And Sanchez might just have a massive revolt on his hand within his own party. Okay. And I'm seeing all this. I'm thinking, Jesus, what's going on here? But I think you're right. It is the art of the deal. Because if I looked at the numbers that they were stating, if the United States will pull out, let's say at the end of this year from NATO and no longer fund them again, okay, which will save the US taxpayers billions, almost trillions, I believe, okay, it would take them 10 years at the current rate that they're doing to get up to the stage where they could defend themselves like if the United States was involved. 10 years and you're a sitting duck for Russia and China for that matter. So something has to be, I'm hoping it is the art of the deal. I'm hoping it's the art of the deal in the Taiwan Strait. And I hope it's the art of the deal with Iran. But I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. The generals don't like the idea worse than the politicians.
Yeah, one last. Sorry, I'll make this quick, and then we'll go to the responses. One thing also people have to understand is that it's geographically deterministic that United States needs European countries just because where they are, right? Like even if you basically ignore everything else, the relationship United States has with these countries is very important because there are many places where United States needs to have uh, access to from a strategic perspective. Geographically, they are important places. These countries are important places, especially now we're talking about the Arctic, and also in relationship to Russia. um it would be difficult. United States is partly a superpower because of the military agreements that it has with many countries around the world, and is and where these countries geographically are makes it important in a way that United States would not want to give up that relationship. It would sometimes threatens them to get a more favorable deal, but it wouldn't want to completely give it up. um okay, let's go to the responses.
First to respond, we have Sketch.
I wrote an article on this on my Twitter. I'm going to put it in the chat. I'm not trying to like promote it or nothing, just so you guys can read it and read my thoughts on this. Trump doesn't have to actually leave NATO. He can just write a letter to NATO, make it very public, and say, hey, if you guys don't do X, Y, and Z, I'll leave NATO. And that might take, like, by next year, you have to do these things, or I'll start to take these steps in Congress to get you out. What does that do? It gets the other nations to like talk about it, talk about the funding. What I would say is tell them, hey, you're diverting funds to pay for Russian oil, which you should start turning on your power plants. If you don't start doing that, I'm going to talk to Congress about getting rid of you. He can start saying, you're not doing any mining and drilling with the zero bullshit stuff, zero carbon bullshit. If you guys don't like keep like using these things as a measure, not only to actually put the military side of NATO uh, up against the political side of NATO, because we're talking about two separate people, the politicians in NATO, right? The political side, which is like the EU and all the allied countries, and the military side. The military side knows what they got to handle, but the political side is just being subservient to the voters and the voters that they're letting in, right? So you would have them fight each other for it, and you could tell them the resourcing and routing. You have to route more oil between you, more carbon between you. You have to share your reactors, turn on your reactors, or I'm leaving NATO. Like have a letter of intent, basically saying I'm going to leave next year. No one can stop him from doing that. And I'm going to start. And another thing he can do, he can start taking military resources from NATO countries and putting them in other NATO countries, right? So he can reallocate resources from one side to the other and give more stuff to Poland, give more stuff to any nation that's more favorable to what we want, right? And that also puts the political pressure, because what you're saying is we've considered it an instability source, that your people have less money for food and energy because of your zero policy. That creates instability. It leads to riot. It leads to political instability. So if you want us in NATO, you're going to have to take care of your energy problems, and you're going to have to stop feeding Russia money because you need their oil, because you want zero carbon produced by you, but you'll burn that carbon when it comes from Russia and give Russia your money. As much as you like to publicly make virtue signaling announcements against Russia, you're paying for their war efforts because you love the zero net disaster. Like that's something I would completely believe Trump would do. It's not, you can't legally, I believe, I don't know, I believe it would be very difficult for the US to legally do anything against Trump for writing a letter of intent in leaving next year, right? Because I'm not saying I'm leaving NATO. Maybe he has the power. Maybe if you don't do this by next year, I'm going to start the process in the US to legally get out. So that would pit the politicians against the military. It would pit the locals against the politicians that are pandering to new arrivals. And it would put into focus that this energy self-sufficiency would be something that's not just for purposes of being away from Russia, but it's also for the purposes of taking the burden of the economic burden off the local people.
Okay, next to respond, we have Jeffrey and then a super chat.
Yeah, you kind of touched on some of the points that I was going to bring up. I'm just going to reiterate the points. So we can't, like, President Trump can't just unilaterally pull out of NATO, right? Internationally, he could do it, except for it would be slow. Domestically, it would be hard to do because you'd have to sit there and do things through Congress. That being said, Armin and Sketch nailed the two reasons that underwrite why the current administration takes the posture it does, including Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. One is the idea that, and this is predominantly Western NATO countries, not all of NATO, free riding under the U.S. security umbrella while they continue to bitch, whine, moan, and complain about how they're allegedly morally and socioculturally superior to us, right? Their people work 4 days a week, 6 hours a day, and retire at fucking 56. Our people work 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, and retire at 72. That's all done. You need to pay your bills. So it's true there's impediments there. President Trump and Secretary of War Hegseth said, you know, we're not pulling out of NATO. We're just going to move our assets to countries that are more willing, honest participants in NATO, like Poland or Romania or, say, the Baltic states, Nordic states. I mean, these people had our back. Hell, even Ukraine had our back. And they're in a war of survival, and they're not even in fucking NATO. Right? I mean, they sent people down to the Strait. You had people out of friggin' Western NATO countries like, oh, how can we do this to go? It's never going back to where you free ride. That's all done. Pay your way. As far as Germany, Germany is definitely rearming. That's true. So that's a good and bad thing. A good thing is Germany has a very deep industrial base, and they're really good at, they love fucking tanks like more than a friend. The bad thing is, yeah, like almost both world wars came out of that country. And so people are like, be von Stauffenberg and not fucking Hitler.
Okay, Armin, to our super chat, please.
Oh, yes. Okay, we got a super chat from Michael. Thank you so much, Michael, for the super chat. Saying, keep up the good work, Armin. Oh, thank you. Shout out to everyone in the panel. That's you guys. Yeah, wave at Michael. Okay, thank you, Michael. Saying Obama's nuclear deal was a disaster. Yes, true. JCPOA funded October 7th. That's the best. There's so many things that are problem with the that I could list like so many things that I want to talk about the JCPOA and why it was an absolute disaster for Iran, for the Middle East, for Israel, but also for the whole world. But I think that one sentence that you could say that people will immediately get it if they actually go research this is that the Obama deal, the JCPOA, funded October 7th. That's the fastest way to show how violent, disgusting that deal was and how damaging it was. And then Michael continues by saying, let's not forget that Obama was involved in 3 wars, Libya, Iraq, and Afghanistan, meanwhile, Trump successfully took out Maduro. Yeah, I mean, President Trump, when it comes to, and also if people want to count, the Iran is not a war that President Trump started. The war with the Islamic Republic started 47 years ago. And President Trump is actually the only president with the balls to actually try to stop a war that was already in place. The Islamic Republic declared war on the United States 47 years ago. Yep. So again, if we're keeping count, so I think under President Trump, no new wars were started. One war there's an attempt to end one of them. And thank you again. Thank you, Michael, for the generous super chat. I appreciate that.
My name is Armin Navabi. I'm an Iranian political analyst with decades of experience fighting the Islamic regime inside and outside of Iran. Make sure you follow me for more, and also make sure you join our discussion group. I'm there almost every single day. Come talk to me there and the rest of the people there in our group calls. It's a great place to meet and talk to people who like talking about politics. The link is in the description and or in the bio. You could also get there by scanning the QR code on the screen. See you there.